welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And the good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, we love you in Canada and Africa, but there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful October the 15th, 2020. Round of the Deportes, bonjour, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Charlton, we're back into football again tonight after taking a one-day pause only on Wednesday. We're going to get football for 6 consecutive days this week. Once again, I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, our doctors, our first responders. We get them every day of the week.
Every day of the week, Big C. I really appreciate that. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world, and never stop rising. I also love to say that all over the world, you can follow Big C Sports by saying Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing from 3,000 miles away, and I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Spotify. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you better have a smart TV, or you'll be sitting there looking at a still picture. Big C, I love pausing, man. It really is like meditation. I love pausing, but I will never pause on the Veterans Crisis Hotline. They really are experienced helping veterans and their loved ones. Big C, why is that so important to you?
Well, Charlton, it's important. As we look at our administration, and they don't have a health plan for the United States, nor do they have any interest in a health plan for our veterans. We lose some 24 a day to suicide in this country, Charlton, a very horrific number. And as your president is out stumping on the campaign trail, he never addresses the issue of our great veterans in this country, about their desperate needs for social interactions, financial help, and even medical help, Charlton. We lose all these veterans because our administration has dropped the ball on that. And we give out the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number because we want to do our part to help.
And we always will.
Become more of a concerted effort amongst Americans.
And
veterans suffer like everyone else. They suffer from COVID-19. They suffer from homelessness. They suffer from lack of income and housing. And those things have led to suicide amongst our veterans. They suffer from great mental and physical disabilities in trying to return back into mainstream society. But they just don't always have the tools. And we are trying to offer part of those tools, Charlton, through the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number.
And we will definitely do our part, and hopefully other people will too. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255, or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255, and you can hopefully get us some help. Also, I'm very happy to be affiliated with Valley Homes Weekly TV on Dish TV, Direct TV, AT&T Uverse, TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants and the Say Hey Kid, and the home run leader, Barry Bonds. When you reach out to him, just tell him Big C sent you. Our goal is simple. We want to recruit 10,000 real estate agents and brokers all over this great country to put people back to work, just like McDonald's does it. Car dealerships are doing it. Sports teams are doing it, and you can too. Watch TV and real estate work for you. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. If you're looking for opportunities to go to work in real estate, just go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. That's bigcsports.pacwm.com, and I really appreciate it. I want people to know also, wherever you are in the world, most people have a handheld cell phone or device, a pilot, those Palm Pilots. Just when you say play Big C Sports Podcast, just download the app. You can get the app on your phone, and you can listen to Big C's thoughts 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Really appreciate that. So, Big C, you know how we say we help our veterans, and I really love helping them. We have another presidential debate. It's tonight, and they're doing it on different stages because POTUS decided he didn't want to be on the same stage or do some type of teleconference with Joe Biden but he's always on a teleconference with Fox News. Why won't he do it face-to-face with the president on the teleconference? Your thoughts?
Well, this is not a debate. These are having two separate town hall meetings. He knows that he got destroyed in that first one, and he doesn't want to do that once again. You know, he's always on Fox because they're going to lead him with the questions and give him soft answers to give. They're not going to challenge him. This is the reason why he's always on state TV called Fox. But he's not going to come out to the general public, Charlton, and let them ask him questions on the failures that he's had in his administration.
Yeah.
You know, as we look at this presidential run, it's all important about people getting out and vote, regardless of the opinion, regardless of party affiliation that you have. It's just about getting out and voting.
Yeah, you got to get out and vote. And people say it doesn't matter who you vote for. Yes, it does. They're just finishing up confirmation with Amy Coney Barrett. And if you got some money saved up in a piggy bank, make sure you save it when you go to the doctor. If they want to decline your insurance because you have a pre-existing condition, Donald Trump is not going to pay that medical bill. Sometimes it costs way more money than people make even in a year when they have a surgery. Make sure you text the word VOTE to 26797. That's text the word VOTE to 26797. You got to get registered. Not everybody's registered. I think we're 18, 19 days out now, Big C. Tell all your friends that Big C in the NFL said vote. And we really have to make this the biggest vote in the history of the universe. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, voting is inalienable right. People have fought for it over the decades. People have fought against people voting. When you think about voter obstruction that really goes on in the southern parts of the United States, voting is the biggest power tool that anyone has. And people know when something is of power, they try to stop you.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what so many politicians have done, governors, senators, is stopping people from voting. This is the one thing that they want to take away from people, that they're part of being an American citizen.
Yeah, and I want to appreciate President Obama. He came on CNN last night, and there were several other guests. And President Obama was talking about the universe of voters, Big C. And Wolf Fischer said it too. There really is a universe of voters, just like there's a universe of sports. And I love being a part of that. I love the fact that we were saying that President Obama is going to come out and start stomping. And the fact that he was actually on TV a couple of days after he talked about that, I really appreciate that too. I want to get on to some things that are important to me. I know that everybody has their own thought about whether we should play sports, whether people should vote, and is voting really something that people have the right to do? I saw the mayor of Atlanta, Keisha Lance Bottoms, she was on a program recently, and she was saying in Georgia, where a lot of people are voting early, that people are in line for like 8 hours. Big C, your thoughts?
Yeah, I've seen that on the news, from 8 to 11 hours in some situations in Georgia, because the Secretary of State, over the last two Secretary of States, have implemented so much voter obstruction in that state. They removed polling stations in neighborhoods that are mostly minority neighborhoods. They've limited, the accessibility. When you're saying that you don't have enough equipment or even, sign the physical ballots that you can utilize, that this election's been coming for 4 years.
Yeah.
And yet you're not equipped, only in those neighborhoods that are predominantly minority.
Yeah.
I mean, that's voter obstruction at its best.
Yeah, we know it's voter obstruction, and a lot of people have been engaged in it, especially when you deal with our states. I know Dianne Feinstein, she thanked Lindsey Graham for making this one of the better political appointments that she's ever been around. They're stonewalling to push through Amy Coney Barrett. They blocked President Obama in his Supreme Court judge elections. And now she's thanking Lindsey Graham that said he would not do that. He would let the next president decide who gets appointed to the Supreme Court. Why is she thanking somebody for going against the word and the will of the American people? And we have almost 18 million people that have already voted. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this is what politicians are all about, lying. Who can lie the most? I mean, we've seen this throughout this Republican administration.
Yeah. Well, shame on her for doing that. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And she has lifetime health care, but people who look like her, for the most part, if they get their way, they're going to strip away the protections with that. But it's all fair and love and war. I want to jump into the world of the NFL. And my goodness, COVID-19 is real. We're just talking about Arthur Blank and that beautiful stadium. I think Mercedes-Benz Stadium down there in Atlanta. But the Atlanta Falcons put everything on dealing with their football facilities on pause because of multiple COVID-19 infections. And this is down in Georgia where people are standing in line for 8 hours to vote. And now their pride and joy, the Atlanta Falcons that have not won a football game since 2019, now they're dealing with COVID. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, COVID is the United States problem. It's a world problem, Charlton. And this is something that everybody's going to have to live with. They're going to have to learn to live with it.
Yeah.
There's not going to be a vaccine ready until 2022. Trust me, 2022 is when a vaccine will be readily available for the United States public as well as the world public.
Yeah.
So COVID-19 is something that everybody's going to have to deal with, whether it's sports or even the private citizens.
Yeah. I'm telling you, there's I think his name is Marlon Davidson on the reserve COVID-19 list. The Falcons put him there. According to many sources, he's a defensive lineman that tested positive for COVID-19. And it's interesting because players swab a lot of spit, unlike the general population. I think Chris Christie, he just got out of the hospital. You know, he's obese, he's out of shape, and he's one of POTUS's right-hand men. You know, the Turnpike in Jersey understands that, Big C. But he also said that he wishes he would not have listened to President Trump and that he should have worn a mask because he had a pretty tough bout, even though he has access to the right medications to get in and get out of the hospital. So from football players to politicians, even if you look at Kamala Harris, VP nominee Kamala Harris, her press secretary also tested positive for COVID-19. So she's putting a pause on her travels, and I think I commend her compared to what Christie did. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, the only way to avoid COVID-19 is not go anywhere. That's how I live my life these days. I stay at home. I find things to do, as well as many other people. But if you go out in public, you're taking the risk of COVID-19, regardless of who you are.
Yeah.
No one is immune to it, and it does not discriminate. It's going to affect millions and millions of more people, Charlton, because there's no way to protect yourself without having a mask on, and people just don't feel the need to wear a mask all the time.
Yeah.
And like I said, we're not going to have a vaccine until 2022.
Well, whether we have a vaccine or not, it still has to be safe. And just going back to some of the players, because I've always thought that the NFL was hiding things. I know maybe people say, oh, you're just cynical. But I studied the CTE issue, and we did the thing that Dr. Benamalo has studied for many years, and the NFL hid a lot of that. To me, it's just odd how here's a guy that's a lineman. He played at Auburn, played 12 defensive snaps, and 5 snaps on special teams. And they lost to the Carolina Panthers 23-16. And then you think about it, they have a first-round draft pick, A.J. Terrell. He's a cornerback out of Clemson. They really don't have contact on every play. Tested positive the Saturday before the Falcons game, and that was September 27, a home game against the Chicago Bears. Now, Terrell missed 2 games before being activated October the 8th, and he was the first NFL player to miss a game because of COVID-19. So maybe my math is wrong, Big C, but if players are testing positive and they're on the same team in the same locker room a month ago as players who are testing positive now this week, wouldn't that tell you they're in the same environment, that they're not letting everything out of the bag, if that makes sense to you, Big C? Your thoughts?
No, I would never look at it from that perspective, Charlton. As I mentioned before on many other cases, you got 80 personnel on an NFL roster. You got 80 different directions that this personnel are going once they leave the facility.
Yeah.
And you got to look at the number of people who are getting COVID-19. Majority of them are single, Charlton, so they're going to places, not to the same place every night.
Yeah.
When you go home every night straight from the facility instead of taking alternative directions, then you limit the amount of exposure that you're going to have. But people are creatures of habit.
Yeah.
And when you have a habit of wanting to go someplace other than just home, you're going to continuously do that. But the problem with the NFL is that you don't have a bubble. You can't protect all your players once they leave the facility. So this is just going to become a continuation. Look at college football. When you have all these 100-plus players leaving locker rooms, they don't all go to the same place. And what you have these massive breakouts because they interact on campus.
Well, we've dealt with Atlanta Falcons and what they're dealing. We've had New England deal with it. Some players, Tennessee dealt with it. A lot of players have dealt with it, and different teams have dealt with it also. But I want to go back to that thing you said about hanging out. And again, it's an airborne virus. It's like catching a cold, but it's a lot worse than that. Alabama coach Nick Saban, he's 68 years old, and he tested positive for COVID-19. And I was thinking, maybe you were thinking that they were going to fly him on his private plane and he's going to go down to the game against Georgia. And they're saying no, he's not supposed to be anywhere near the stadium, anywhere near the facility. So he's 68 years old. And as far as I know, as a head coach, he has control of everything. So if he tests positive and he's contracting with everybody from offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, special teams coaches and players and administration, wouldn't you think that other people that he's come in contact with would also be positive? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Alabama had an outbreak before football started. They had some 30 personnel and players test positive earlier in the year, back in July.
Yeah.
So this is not the first wave that has gone through the campus at Alabama. They've had some 2,000 students on campus test positive for COVID-19. This is just going to be a continuing cycle. This is like the news coming on every day.
Yeah.
Every day you can talk about the COVID-19, the breakout of COVID-19, which teams that it's affecting,
yeah,
whether it's college or professional. It's going to be there. It's not going to diminish in any kind of way. There's no way you can keep people safe, whether it's a coach, whether it's a player. You're going to be socially interacting with each other.
Yeah.
And so that's going to continuously cause problems.
Does Nick Saban lose any credibility because they're trying to say no, it's player behavior, or no, it's a person's behavior, going to someone's conference without a mask? Maybe they're saying that. But how does he keep the attention? You know, he makes $11 million a year, plus he has Mercedes-Benz and Aflac and all the sponsorships. But what does he say to his kids that don't have sponsorship with Mercedes-Benz, that don't have an $11 million a year contract, they don't have access to the best medical facilities? A lot of those kids are poor, and they grew up in poverty. What does he say to them about not getting the virus? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I think he said what all coaches have said to the players, that you got to take every precaution that you can. This is a guy, and I'm going to believe that Nick took precautions, but you also got to look at the environment that he's in. He's around his players.
Yeah.
He's around coaches. He's around officials. You look at all the people that he's around on a sideline. You wear a mask, but you're still coming in contact with people.
Yeah.
You go in the locker room. You may not have that mask on in the locker room. You don't know if you have players that are infected or not. You do the best that you can as far as, testing.
Yeah.
And all of that. But like I said, the virus is not going to discriminate. The only way that you can possibly stay safe is that you stay totally isolated from everybody.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think it's like telling people not to catch the cold, and people are going to catch it. It's how you get access. But this is the thing that bothers me too, Big C, and I know it bothers you too a little bit. When I hear this confirmation going through, and they know she's going to kill Obamacare. They know that. They don't want any black man's name on anything that's going to save lives. Now, when people get sick, they can't go to the hospital or doctor like these coaches can. And when they try to get insurance to cover the medical bill, they can get it diagnosed with a pre-existing condition, and they can just, no, we don't have anything. We can't help you. And no, POTUS doesn't have an insurance plan, but he's lied to so many people and told them that he does have one. He's going to reveal it after he puts out his taxes. What other thing do you say to people? Because it's still a tight race no matter what people think. Why are people voting against having health care for their family, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, would you call the people that are voting against the Obamacare evil, mean, spiteful?
Probably so.
Okay. They're all white too, aren't they? So this is what I say. This is what white people do to people, Charlton. They do not want equality in America. As much as you might think that they do, because they give a few people jobs and give a few people decent places to live, they're not looking for equality. You look at voter suppression. That's not looking for equality. And when you do it against people of color, you look at the southern states. You don't have voter suppression out there in California.
No.
But you have it in the southern states. You look at what they're doing in Texas, Georgia, Carolina, Florida, these type of places, Charlton, where people of color, you want to hurt them, and you will hurt them in any kind of way. So if you don't want them to vote, you take away all the things that might mean something to them in life. And so that's their health care, that's the ability to vote, to earn a decent living, and the white people are the ones that are controlling that, Charlton.
Yeah, but there are also some black Americans. Tim Scott out of South Carolina. There's also the gentleman.
You got one black American, Tim Scott. You got the rest of those senators are white, Charlton, that are Republicans. Those are the ones pushing it through. That one white vote, even if he didn't vote for Amy Coney Barrett or, Kavanaugh or Gorsuch, the ones that went in, would not have made a difference. You got to look at the Supreme Court. You got one black guy on the Supreme Court, and everybody who's put these people on the Supreme Court have been white. We don't have enough black senators, Charlton, in the United States Senate to make a difference regardless of which way they vote. The guys, and when you sit there and look at that confirmation hearing, how many white senators did you see? How many black senators did you see?
Yeah, only one Supreme Court Justice, Clarence Thomas, and you know he has pre-existing conditions, but he also has lifetime health care. All fair and love and war, but it's really sad what's happening to people, especially our elderly. I want to look at the world of college football, Big C, because it's still down there in the South. No matter what we think of COVID, there's 2 remaining undefeated teams in the SEC, Southeastern Conference. They're going to walk into Bryant-Denny Stadium on Saturday night in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, for the biggest game of the 2020 regular season, at least in the SEC, number 3 Georgia. They're going to square off with number 2 Alabama in a game that it not only will have an impact for the race for their conference championship, but the college football playoffs also. But it will leave the loser with little margin of error during the rest of the season. But you know the way you guys in the South vote, they're probably going to get at least 2 teams from the SEC into the college football playoffs. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, if they do, it'll be based on the amount of games that are played. You got to look at these SEC teams, Charlton. They're playing 10 to 11 regular season games. When your Pac-12 finally starts up, I think the most that they'll play is 6. And so that's going to weigh a big difference when it comes down to voting for who's in the playoffs. If somebody is 10-1 or 9-1 versus somebody who's 5-1, I think they're going to give the nod to the team with the most victories.
Yeah.
When you talk about this game at Bryant-Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa, this is a game where you say Nick Saban is not going to be there. You know, and Steve Sarkisian will take over at the head coaching duties in this game. Now, he's been a head coach before, out there in USC before he got dismissed for his substance abuse problem.
Yep. And Washington.
You know, this will be a marker on him. If he wins the game, they'll say, okay, he's a guy that's viable and he could be a head coach again. But if he loses this game, everybody will say, this is all about Nick Saban. Without Nick, Alabama's no good. You know, Nick will get even more high praise on a pedestal.
Yeah.
But it's also about Kirby Smart. Nick Saban's teams are 21-0 against his former assistant.
Yeah.
Kirby Smart has gone after Nick Saban. I think they've faced each other 3 times, and he's lost all 3 times.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity for Kirby Smart, coming in hot off that last victory that they had last week, I believe, against South Carolina or Tennessee, to knock off this team without Nick Saban. But if Alabama goes and wins this game without Nick Saban, they're a clear-cut favorite to be in the college football playoff.
Yeah, as long as they don't get knocked off by somebody else. Who would have thought that LSU would have more losses than wins, and they're the defending national champions, and they tend to reload, not have to go out and recruit. So give me one more feeling on this SEC thing, because I don't think they've ever played each other since they realigned the conferences in the regular season. They've always had to win their division and then meet in the championship game. Big C, is that true or not? Your thoughts?
Well, it's been 11 years since they faced each other in the regular season, since the realignment of the SEC. They normally face off in the SEC championship game down in Atlanta every year. Well, the past 3 years they've done that. They've been the best 2 teams in each of their divisions.
Yeah. Why is it, in your opinion, does Georgia, which is always put up on the pedestal, I mean, you're always going to get Alabama, you're going to get Clemson, and then it seems like Georgia's been there, at least in the last 4 or 5 years, they've been ranked preseason no lower than 4. Like, they're always 3 or 4, but they never end up 3 or 4 at the end of the season. What's going to be different about this time if they win the game? Your thoughts?
Well, the reason why they had the preseason ranking is always have to do with the recruiting classes that they have.
Yeah.
When you always have a top 3 recruiting class, you're going to get the preseason ranking. They have the athletes. You know, their biggest hurdle is that they've come up against a team that's generally been in the national championship game.
Yeah.
Last year was LSU, went on to win the national championship. The year before that, it was Alabama, who went to the national championship game and won. The year before that, it was Alabama, who went to the national championship game and lost. This is a team that's always right there. You think about it. They're always playing at the end of the season the first or the second best team in the country. Yeah,
it seems that way. But I will say for my West Coast brethren, the last time Georgia played a ranked team from the West Coast, they got beat by Boise State 35-7. And the good old boys down in Georgia, they erased Boise State's phone number from out of their phone, Big C. That make any sense, your thoughts?
Well, that was a long time ago, and even Blind Squirrel will find an acorn every now and then. The Broncos had a heck of a year. I think they may have knocked off Oklahoma also sometime during that run, and knocked off Oregon also.
Yeah.
So, Boise State have gone through all the conferences.
Yeah, sometimes people don't want a rematch, like Conor McGregor and Money Mayweather. I want to look at another game. It's the South, down in the South. Saturday's game between number 8 ranked Cincinnati. Cincinnati's ranked number 8 because a lot of other conferences, the Pac-12 and the Big Ten, haven't started up yet. But their Cincinnati and Tulsa has also been postponed, put on pause because of COVID-19 cases in Cincinnati. Now think about this: when you quarantine athletes at a school, I think it's called the American Athletic Conference. Now, when they quarantine these players, where are they quarantining them? Around other players? They can't put them all in different dorms all by themselves. They still got to eat. They got to go shower. So they really can't quarantine the way someone can quarantine at home, Big C, or does that make sense to you? Your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to assume that they have a facility that they can isolate these athletes in, whether they put them in a hotel room or whatever, Charlton. This is what they do. They have the money to do it. But they want to make sure that they take all health precautions with these players and keep them isolated from the other players.
Yeah. Well, Tulsa, thinking about it, Big C, they've only played 2 games this season because of COVID-19 related postponements and cancellations. The Golden Current Hurricanes, they've yet to play at home. They wanted to call this a homecoming game, but that's been put on pause. They also played, I think they have a game coming up against East Carolina, and then also University of South Florida. That's going to be on October 23rd. They're going to be shuffling players around and teams around. And I don't know how much more we got to look at before. In fact, I know we're not going to get anybody on pause because the TV money is rolling in too big. Before we get in on what's called the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout, sometimes when you're going to a college campus, everybody wants to get together and have these frat parties and these sorority parties. Even though most campuses, they've closed the campus, Big C. They don't let you back on now. I know Notre Dame, their president of Notre Dame, I think his name is Father James. I might be wrong about his name, but he caught COVID-19 at a Donald Trump rally. So they put Notre Dame on lockdown, and a lot of people are having issues. But when you are on lockdown, you can order the Big C burger. It really is a tasty burger. It comes with exotic meats, and hopefully a lot more people can enjoy that as they're dealing with their lockdown. We're going to take what's called the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. And when we come back, I want to talk more about what's going on in the world of sports and politics. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, we are back from the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts and so many other applications that I really do appreciate. When I think about college football, USC, they're getting ready to start, later this month. Actually, I think November 7th, they're talking about for the Pac-12. But I wonder how far-reaching those tentacles are. Even in the Big Ten, they're going to start later this month or the first part of November. And I wonder with these coaches, Herm Edwards down at Arizona State, he's up in age. They're all about the same age of Nick Saban, give or take a couple years, Clay Helton. And I wonder, in your opinion, having a side conversation with these coaches, Big C, and we see Alabama, their head coach, Nick Saban. We've seen Tulsa canceled. We've seen some games with Missouri canceled. We've seen a lot of players in a lot of games. What advice would you give to these coaches that are in their late 60s and they just want to go out and play a game, Big C? Your thoughts?
I think all of these coaches have taken the precautionary measures when it comes down to COVID-19. They understand the risk that they're dealing with. They signed up for a job to take care of these young men.
Yeah.
And I think their concerns about the young men are even more so than what they are about themselves, Charlton, and keeping them safe.
Yeah.
And not having prolonged health risks with the young players.
Yeah.
They understand all the risks of being in the age brackets that they are. These are not unintelligent men. These are very highly educated men. So they're dealing with the health experts, Charlton, as far as how to stay safe. As we saw, Nick Saban just came down with it, as well as several other coaches have been affected. Norvell down in Florida State has been affected with COVID-19 and other coaches. So This is going to happen because you're around too many people. This is the problem when you're around in excess of 100 people every day in a close, confined environment. This is going to happen to you.
What advice would you give to Coach Mullen, down at Gainesville, University of Florida? The best coach in that conference got sick. And as far as I know, and I might be wrong, Nick Saban's not calling for a packed house down at Bryant-Denny Stadium. But Mullen is up at the University of Florida, and he's not even the best coach in that conference. What could Nick Saban, or even if you had the chance to talk to Mullen about having 90-plus thousand down at Florida games right now, it's easy to say after we've had Nick Saban get sick, but what conversation would they have with him? There's no thought that I know of that he's changed his mind, Big C. Your thoughts?
Charleston, these coaches are not going to change their mind about coaching. This is like telling a racehorse once he gets in the starting gate not to run once they open the gate. This is what's in their blood. This is what they do. They go out and they coach. They coach these young men regardless of the situation. And this is what they signed up for. They're not going to back down because COVID-19, as I keep telling you. 2022, mark that down. That's when the vaccine will be available for COVID-19. America's just going to have to get used to dealing with COVID-19. There's no way around it. I don't care what we do, trying to stay safe, trying to stay protected. We're 2 years away from a vaccine in this country.
So what's your thoughts when POTUS, who's having his town hall tonight, how's he going to sell to the American people over 218,000 fatalities because that man lied? They can trace it back to the man with the orange face. And it really is true. It's not the China virus. When it came to the United States, it was his job to keep Americans safe, not China. And he lied. And now we're up to 218,000. He still has rallies where people don't wear a mask. What does he say to show people that they should trust him after he's lied more than any president in the history of the universe? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charleston, COVID-19 is not on his agenda. Donald Trump has never put together a national strategy to combat COVID-19, nor will he put together a battle to battle COVID-19. His whole talk is about he's going to save the white women in the suburbs. The stock market is going great. He's fighting China. This is what he talks about.
Yeah.
He talks about the anarchy if the Democrats become, control of the White House. He's not talking about what he's going to do for America, and people need to stop thinking that he's going to do that.
Yeah.
He has no presidential plan other than just being in charge.
Yeah, and he has another 18 days, and then he'll be sworn in a new president in January 20th, 2021, unless we have some shenanigans, which in my gut, I know we're going to have some shenanigans. It's all fair and love and war. I want to close out one more thing with college football, because the Pac-12, and I talked about, Coach Edwards out at Arizona State. There's a lot of other coaches that are, got some age on them, Big C. They're in their 60s. I think this helped the USC Trojans. If we go back to the world of college football, they're starting in November. They're playing 9 o'clock in the morning games. They get a chance to be seen on TV. They have about 17 returning starters and a lot of good talent coming in. They have a great receiver by the name of Drake London, Big C. Ramon Alsate Brown that's going to be down there. If they throw the ball, they should be okay. But I really feel, and I mentioned Herm Edwards earlier, and I think I mentioned it to you last week, Big C. Would you believe the Pac-12 with Commissioner Larry Scott, they're planning to have 9 o'clock a.m. kickoffs, and that's on the West Coast, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, you're doing what you can do to try to get some primetime exposure. They know that with limited number of games, Charleston, they're trying to get the masses around the country to pay attention to what they're doing. When you have 7:30 kickoffs on the West Coast, that's 10:30 on the East Coast, the national media, where it really sits at.
Yeah.
And people have watched the full day of football in the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12.
Yeah.
And by that time of the night, Charleston, they're ready to go to bed. So he's trying to compete against those other conferences like the Big Ten.
Yeah, and I guess he has to get up at 9 o'clock in the morning because he gets to the bank when the bank opens at 9, and they give all that money to get kids to go out and play against their body clock as well as COVID-19. Some things just do not make any sense, but it's all fair and love and war. Big C, I want to jump into the world of the NBA. I love NBA basketball, and I already miss it. The NBA basketball has grown in LA, and I don't know why the Clippers want to stay in the same Staples Center. There's talk about them maybe going to Las Vegas or going to Seattle or even down to Orange County and playing in Anaheim. But you have the Clippers. I don't know if this is an upward move or a lateral move. They hire head coach Tyronn Lue as a new head coach on a 5-year deal. I know Magic Johnson wanted him to coach the LA Lakers, but Vogel did a fine job this year, letting guys know what he wanted from them on the court, and the players executed. Tyronn Lue, Doc Rivers, I think, to me, in my opinion, I think they let go of a better coach with more experience for just to fill the seat with somebody. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, sometimes you got to have a new messenger to pass on the message to the players.
Yeah.
I think it's familiarity with the lineup that they have there with the Clippers. You don't have to make a huge adjustment as far as, coaching style.
Yeah.
When you think about Lou, he's a guy who inherited LeBron James and went on and won a championship. Now he's going to inherit Kawhi Leonard and Paul George.
Paul George, yeah.
He has a stacked roster there. And so, you want a guy with experience when you got an experienced roster like that. I think it'll be beneficial for the team. It's about getting these guys to overachieve instead of underachieve.
Yeah. I know you when you got that moonshine bucket, nobody want to drink out of. You ever drink out of somebody's glass, Big C? That makes sense to you?
Well, I mean, when you look at the people that he followed Mike Brown down there in, Cleveland.
Yeah.
And so, he's gone out, and this is a guy with experience. He has championship pedigree.
Yep.
And he's, trying to teach these guys how to win. He's won as a player and a coach.
There's talk that Van Gundy may be signing a contract also in the NBA. I haven't confirmed that or yet. Do you hear any more thought on Van Gundy, if he would be a good fit? And whether it's going to be, I don't know. But do you think that he hasn't coached in a long time? You can't just pull people off the broadcast booth and put them on the floor, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you can do that. I mean, it's been successful. Doc came off the broadcast booth and went to the floor. Mark Jackson did the same thing. Steve Kerr did that. Charlton. I mean, there's been a wealth of players, but you got two Van Gundys. You got the Van Gundy brothers.
Yeah.
So one of them was recently the coach of the Detroit Pistons, once been in the broadcast booth.
Yeah.
They most likely both will end up back in the NBA coaching.
Yeah, I guess the money's too big to turn away. I really wish in the well, no matter what happens. NBA news, Daryl Morey steps down as the Rockets GM to remain in an advisory role to assist the coaching, based on some reports down there in Houston. I know he had the fiasco that the NBA had with China, and now that's all smoothed over when I guess the NBA gave China some money when the COVID vaccine had some issues with some parts that they needed for medical equipment. But give me your feeling on, it doesn't really change the Houston Rockets. I thought they went south, if that makes sense to you, when they got rid of Clint Capella and they tried to play small ball and with Harden and Westbrook, and that never really worked for them. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Daryl Morey hurt the NBA, in China when he sent out a tweet about a year ago.
Yeah.
Siding with the people over there versus the government, and the government said, okay, we'll just cut the NBA off.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody should have these social activist moves, but, you have to do it within your own country first, and Morey didn't do that. But then also it was backed up with a tweet from LeBron James blasting Daryl Morey.
Yeah.
So nobody's really heard from the guy for the past year. He's been hiding out somewhere. But, it was just a matter of time before he was out of the NBA.
Yeah.
But he made all the moves with the Rockets. When you think about it, his best chance was a couple of years ago when they had the Warriors down. I believe it was 3-1. And the Warriors came back and knocked them off and went on to win another championship.
Yeah.
Since then, he's made some questionable moves with the organization. He's going to stay on because now they're going to need a GM as well as a head coach. And so they're out there looking for a tandem of individuals, Charlton, to bring in to try to right the ship. Who knows who they'll keep in place roster-wise once this next move is made.
Yeah. When you look at Miami, Bam Adebayo, Big C, he's a big guy, can block shots at the rim. I know Jason Tatum remembers that. And then you have Anthony Davis for the Lakers. Even LeBron James and whoever they bring in as another, I think Dwight Howard, I don't know what's going to happen with him because he's talking about doing some work with the Warriors. I don't know yet. The ink may not be dry. But what's important for Houston, they got to get a big guy, especially in the West. You got Jokic. You have so many guys that are tall and talented, and you're not going to win playing small ball. But I do want to keep you down in Los Angeles, Big C. I know you I think it's called Randy's Donuts. Whenever you're down in L.A., you'll stand in line. People stand in line for Randy Donuts. They better not worry about standing in line to vote, Big C. Your thoughts?
No, Randy Donuts is an institution in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
It's over there off the 405. It's just a marvelous place, and a great place to have an addiction to.
Yeah. And you mix that with the Big C burgers, Randy Burgers and Randy's Donuts and Big C burgers. It's really, really, good, Big C. Anthony Davis, he probably goes down to Randy Donuts. Plans to opt out of his $28,700,000 player option, but he's going to re-sign with the LA Lakers, or is he, Big C? Your thoughts?
Yeah, he's going to re-sign with the Lakers because he can opt out of the deal that he has, and he can get even more money if he decides to stay. There's also an option that he may be looking at the Chicago Bulls also, because that's where he's from. That's his hometown. Players like to go back home once they won a championship. Also, Rajon Rondo plans on opting out of his contract with the Lakers also.
Yeah, but let me ask your opinion. Who's more important to the Lakers organization? Would it be Rajon Rondo? Would it be Anthony Davis? And then I want to ask about Dwight Howard coming up too, because it's one thing if Anthony Davis, in my opinion, thinks he can follow the way of Kyrie Irving. When he was with Cleveland, he won a championship with LeBron James. He played great because he had LeBron James taking away the... And then he goes over to Boston, and they had a defunct season. Even though they got into the playoffs, Irving didn't help them win. And then he goes over to the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, they didn't make the playoffs last year either, Big C. Is Dwight Howard able to see that you're the best player in the NBA maybe for the next 2 or 3 seasons? Or does he want to go out and be Batman instead of Robin, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, he's not going to be the best player in the NBA over the next few years. I mean, you got to look at the Golden State Warriors coming back in that division. They're going to be strong. The Clippers are going to be better than what they were this year. Portland is going to be improved. You have to contend with Denver. There's some strong teams out in the West.
Yeah.
I mean, it's about who you align yourself with. They got Levine there in Chicago. I think they would make a marvelous tandem if they were together, as well as Kobe Ford that they have there also at the point guard, who's been one of the up-and-coming young players in the league.
Yeah.
Phoenix is going to be much improved in the West also. You know, it's about players wanting to win a championship. Sometimes one is enough. Then they'll move on and see what they can do elsewhere. I mean, Kawhi Leonard, when he left San Antonio, he had already won a championship. He was fortunate enough to win a second in Toronto.
Yeah.
So who's to say where you go, what you're going to win? There's no guarantee that Los Angeles will repeat with all the stress that's going to be in the West next year.
Yeah, I think there's going to be very good basketball in the West. And speaking of the West, Golden State Warriors, there's also the talk that Giannis is going to be playing for Golden State next year. I know they're quiet about that right now, but the Warriors are also interested in free agent Dwight Howard. The Lakers are expected to pursue re-signing the center, but if Golden State signs Dwight Howard, then Giannis is probably not coming to Golden State. But if Golden State does not get Dwight Howard, that's leaving room and space for Giannis potentially. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Dwight Howard won't make a difference wherever Giannis is going to play. The kind of money that he'll command will not be the money that Giannis has. But, you know, if he wants a more dominant role and an important role with the team, he would sign with Golden State. If he's okay with the role that he's playing with the Lakers as a predominant backup, then he'll stay there. But either place that he goes, he's going to be a viable commodity for either one of those teams.
How much do you think Dwight Howard has learned? Because he went through some own personal things, and who doesn't go through something personal, Big C? But he had to get his act together and stop being Superman. I know he was Superman when he played for the Orlando Magic, and he also came out and played for the Lakers at the time, and he was also, tugging on Superman's cape, but he wasn't able to be Superman. Isn't it amazing that when he took an ancillary role, he was able to win a championship compared to when he was the Batman, if that makes sense to you? Your thoughts?
Well, when he came to the Lakers previously in his career, Charlton, years ago, it was a team of a selfish Kobe Bryant who wasn't willing to give up part of the handle to a Dwight Howard. He wanted to make it just his team, and he wasn't able to share the load, just like with Shaq. The reason why Shaq had to leave L.A. He wanted to be the alpha and not share that role. And so Dwight moved on. He went to a couple of different teams, bounced around, but he came back to the Lakers this year because he knew that he understood more about the game and maturity now than what he did before. And so, I mean, it's about finding a fit regardless of the players. We see great players move around the NBA all the time.
Yeah.
And they go to other organizations, and they're not the individuals that they were before.
Yeah.
Because you got to find a personnel fit. It's not the team. It's not the color of the uniform. It's the personnel fit when you're going to a new organization.
Yeah. Well, I wish all these players nothing but the best, and I'm really appreciate that the NBA voter registration for NBA players in 2016, it was only 22%. now voter registration with the NBA players, and I'm saying primarily because of Big C Sports and our platform that's been copied by so many people, is 96%, and to me that's incredible. I want to look at Major League Baseball, especially you have 4 teams that are still standing in Major League Baseball 2020 season, Big C. The League Championship Series round is in full swing this week. The Braves and Dodgers are squaring off in the NLCS, and LA's offense had a historic Game 3 for the team's first win of the series. On the American League side, the Rays hold a 3-1 ALCS lead over the Houston Astros. But last night, because Dusty Baker kept in Zach Greinke, giving them some confidence, I think that's what they needed. I don't think the Houston could come back and win this series, but it still shows that Dusty still has some tricks up his sleeves. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I mean, they needed this win desperately.
Yeah.
I don't know if they can come back and win it all, but they desperately needed this win. The Rays are a hot team. They finally gave up some runs. But I don't think you're going to see that this next outing, Charlton. I think the Rays will close out the series. Houston is, gave up an admirable fight last night to stay in this, not wanting to be swept as everybody else had been by the Rays. But the Rays are going to go to the World Series.
Yeah, and speaking of games and guys being swept, when I look at what the LA Dodgers did with a 15-3 beatdown of the Atlanta Braves, and I thank the Dodgers for following Big C Sports because I told them, quit taking that Southern hospitality for granted. You guys aren't that nice. Whatever they were giving them to drink, Big C, it made them play listless. Well, the Dodgers brought their own Gatorade last night, and they pounded out 15 runs to 3 for the Braves. I'm not saying they're going to win this series, but it sure seems like they found a lot of momentum in one game, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I think the momentum came from the previous game, Charlton, when they scored 4 runs in the 9th inning to bring that game close.
Yeah.
Against the Braves. And that picked up last night where they left off the night before when they scored 11 runs in the first historical night.
Yep.
And, when you do that and you have the momentum and you don't take your foot off the gas, that's the key. But late in the game, Charlton, they wasn't putting up those runs. They got complacent after they put up 11. You got to keep it going because you can't take those runs over into the next game.
Yeah.
And if they don't get out to a fast start in the next game, we know how dominant the Braves pitching can be.
Well, they're playing already. I don't like to give out scores, but when you get to put Clayton Kershaw up against Freeman, if you're a Dodger fan, how much of a leniency will Roberts give Clayton Kershaw? If he gives up a home run, obviously you yank him. But if you can get Clayton Kershaw to get through the 5th inning, don't try to get him into 7. But if he gives up home run and Atlanta gets turned on again, that's not good for the Dodgers. If you're manager Roberts and you're the Lakers and you're the Dodgers, Big C, what inning would you want to get out of Clayton Kershaw if you can get even past 4, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I think what you really need to get out of him is 6 1/3. If you get 6 1/3 innings out of Clayton Kershaw, then you most likely could win the games as the Los Angeles Dodgers. But you also got to understand this is a different Clayton Kershaw than what you've seen in previous years.
Yeah. Normally,
he's pitched twice as many games going into the playoffs that he has pitched this year. So that arm is a lot stronger at this junction with the 60-game abbreviated season than what it would normally be. So Clayton Kershaw is a lot more stronger right now in this playoff than he's been in his career before.
Yeah, well, I hope so. It's amazing how you can have back spasms one game, and then you get whatever they shoot him up with. Maybe some back rubs. Maybe he called up Shaq and got some icy hot for his back spasms, Big C. But if he can come out and get the Dodgers even up this series, I think it makes it a whole new ball game because the Dodgers have been the best team, in my opinion, this year in Major League Baseball. I just want to run down a little bit of some history with Major League Baseball. If you go back to October, thinking about it, it's amazing what this year has been. It's been really scary for a lot of people. We have the Nationals in 2019. Washington Nationals clinched their first World Series title, Big C, defeating the Houston Astros 6-2, and that was done at Minute Maid Park in Houston. And now we're coming into, they had come back from Montreal. They were the Senators in Washington back in the 20s when they last won the World Series, and then they went up to Montreal, and then coming back last year and finally winning one for Washington. Even going back to 1903, the World Series was played in the best of 9 games format in 1903 and 1919 and also 1921. The league, think about this. Through 2019, the American League has won 66 World Series championships, and the National League has won 49 World Series championships. But I would say that most of those championships are won because the home team had that home field advantage. Is it less pressure, as you talk about this for football, Big C, when players are away from home? Is it less pressure for these teams to be outside of their own ballpark and trying to win, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I don't know if it's less pressure, but I think everything is equal when you look at baseball being played this year.
Yeah.
Because the crowds are basically neutral in these scenarios.
Yeah.
They're looking at, whoever's playing the best at that time, and they're cheering for whatever's happening.
Yeah.
So when you talk about the momentum of a home crowd, nobody has it this year. So it's about the best players performing.
Yeah, and so I wish everybody the best. I love Major League Baseball. I do have to admit, it's just not the same feeling when you don't have fans. The NBA, to me, is more real because you can get up close to the players and you can see the players' faces. You can hear what they're talking about. So I've gotten more into the NBA than I have for Major League Baseball. In NFL football, they don't really show the crowd anyway unless the pass is in the air, and so it's a little bit easier. But I do wish all teams well. I am biased. I want to see the West Coast bring home another World Series for the West Coast and the LA Dodgers. I want to touch on a little bit of football. Cleveland Browns, they sent home Odell Beckham Jr. with an undisclosed illness. No one thinks it's COVID. He did take a COVID test. But players, it is coming up on flu season. I know everybody's antsy when someone says that someone was sent home because everybody's so afraid of COVID, Big C. But that gives, if anything, the Steelers coming up on that game this weekend, they got to have Odell Beckham, especially against that Steel Curtain defense, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I don't know if it's going to be so much about the passing game against the Steelers. They have to be able to run the ball. Odell Beckham, yes, he's been the most targeted receiver amongst the Browns receivers this year. But it's the running game that has allowed him to be targeted.
Yeah.
Jarvis Landry is an outstanding receiver. They got David Njoku back as well as Austin Hooper, the twin tight ends. But it's that running game. If the Cleveland Browns are going to move to 5-1 on the season, it's going to have to be the difference in the game. But the Pittsburgh Steelers are not going to lay down. Ben Roethlisberger, as you saw, has been hot in every game. Chase Claypool had a record outing last week at receiver for the Steelers.
Out of Notre Dame.
And that defense for the Steelers is outstanding. When you look at all the teams that both of these teams have beat, nobody has a winning record. So it's about who's going to walk out of this game with a winning record.
And I'm sure the Baltimore Ravens will be scouting these teams very well. The Browns are 4-1 off to their best start since 1994, and the Steelers are off to their best start undefeated since the 1978 season. Should be a great game where they like to play football dirty. If you go back to the days of Mean Joe Green, wouldn't it have been great? You know how Mean Joe Green had that commercial, have a coconut smile, and it gave that young kid his jersey. I guess Mean Joe Green was walking off the field with a leg injury. Mean Joe Green, they should have that commercial come back, but this time have it come back with the Big C burger. It really is a tasty burger. It comes with exotic meats, and I'm sure that Mean Joe Green would love some exotic meats to eat. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, that's one of the most iconic commercials in the history of sports. It resonates whenever you see it because Coca is a lasting symbol of Americana.
Yeah.
And at that time, to have a football player toss his jersey to a kid, which all NFL players seem to do now to each other after games, it's very memorable.
Yeah, it's very memorable. Also memorable, and I'm just pulling for the best, Dak Prescott, Dallas Cowboys star quarterback. He's feeling better. He posted on social media. It's amazing. The man tears up his knee or his ankle, and he's out for the season. But because of what POTUS is trying to kill with the Affordable Care Act, which is access to good health care and not to be decline insurance because you have a pre-existing condition, this great football player is already out of surgery, already doing his rehab, and he says he feels great. And when people cheer that Dak Prescott's, starting rehab already, and they feel great about him, how do they celebrate trying to end the Affordable Care Act? Because it's the insurance and the surgery that made him great, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, morphine will make you feel good after any surgery. You have that capability you have that type of injury and you're going to need.
Yeah.
But I keep telling you over and over, look at the people that are trying to abolish the Affordable Care Act. It's not just Barrett.
Yeah.
You can't point a finger at her. It has to have a 5-judge decision to abolish the Affordable Care Act. Then you have to look at the complexion of those 5 judges who are going to do it.
Yeah. Well, there's something called the Skull and Bone Society. People understand that if that makes sense to you. I just hope everybody's well. Cam Newton also, he's back at practice today after having his COVID-19 scare. And, everybody has their own thoughts about why. Everybody wants to just stay healthy. You can't trust other people to keep you healthy. You got to do it yourself. And so I wish Cam Newton nothing but the best as he comes back and tries to help New England win the AFC East Big C. Also, Le'Veon Bell, when you think about Le'Veon Bell as another talented football player, I think you said he got like $28 million in 16 games, being signed by the New York Jets, and they still owe him another $6 million. The Chiefs signed Le'Veon Bell to a one-year deal as an ex-Jet prioritizes winning based on getting a lot more money. Now, what does this add to Patrick Mahomes in the backfield? He's used to having guys that run track, but now he has another player with great experience. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this is a situation where they did not have Damian Williams come back. He opted out for the season because of the COVID-19 protocol, Charlton. So this is going to give the Kansas City Chiefs another weapon. Damian Williams could have been the MVP of the Super Bowl last year against the 49ers.
Yeah.
But now you bring in Le'Veon Bell, an experienced pass catcher out of the backfield, a much more useful weapon than Clyde Edwards-Helaire will. He'll give a different change-up.
Yeah.
There's a huge mismatch underneath for linebackers. He understands and knows how to read NFL defense. So it'll be a huge asset for this Kansas City offense.
Yeah, I really like what he brings to it. It just gives Patrick Mahomes another weapon. Big C, how can he work out in Kansas City, the defending Super Bowl champions, but the New York Jets couldn't wait to ship him out of town or fly him out of town? Big C, your thoughts?
The same reason anybody has worked out in Kansas City. When you go to a place and they have established superstars and leaders, all you do is fit in.
Yeah.
You ask, what can you do? You don't tell people what you want to do.
Yeah.
That's what will make him an asset in Kansas City. When you go to a team with Mr. Mahomes playing quarterback, all you want to say is, what can I do to help you?
Yeah. What can I do to help you? It is all fair and level war. No Thursday night football game tonight as scheduled for the NFL because COVID-19 has made some people move some chairs around, playing musical chairs. It's all fair and level war. I do appreciate everybody getting out to vote. You got to text the word vote to 29767 and make sure you get registered for that. It's so important. I know a lot of people are going to be watching on two different channels, the town hall meetings with Joe Biden and POTUS. POTUS is having his COVID-19 tour, and they're going to film it, I guess, on MSNBC, and then presidential candidate Joe Biden's going to be on the ABC News, I believe. And so we wish everybody to stay healthy. Kamala Harris stay healthy. Everybody stay healthy, Big C. With players moving around in the NBA and also the NFL, I want to get your opinion. Do you think African-American coaches will get a fair shot at the recent NFL openings the way they have in the NBA? Black candidates should have at least some assurance that there's a level playing field that exists in the NFL and that they're not simply a box that's being checked off. Big C, your thoughts?
I don't think that things are going to change when it comes to that.
Really?
They're just going to be a box that's checked off. I know a lot of people have stomped for Eric Bieniemy to get a head coaching job, but Eric Bieniemy, you have to understand, does not want to just jump out there at any coaching job.
Yeah.
If there's one coaching job he would be interested in, it would be down at Houston, because he's going to need a player similar to the player that he has in Kansas City at quarterback.
Yep.
And that would be Deshaun Watson, the closest to Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
You just can't go out there and say, we're going to put him in an offense with a drop-back quarterback like you have down in Atlanta with Matt Ryan and expect for that offense to be acceptable.
Yeah.
This is the one thing that people don't always understand about going into a situation.
Yep.
You have to have the personnel to run your scheme when you're a head coach. You take a head coaching job, you're fired in 2 years if you're a black guy because you don't have the personnel to run your scheme. We saw that with Vance Joseph in Denver.
Yeah.
We saw that with Wilkes down in Arizona.
Yeah.
So this is the problem with black head coaches. When you bring them in and you have some archaic quarterback who can't run the system that you're accustomed to running, you're going to be fired in 2 years.
Yeah.
So I would rather not for a black coach to take just any job to say, okay, we fulfill this quota, versus putting him into the proper situation and letting him pick his personnel. If you're going to take a coaching job as a black head coach, you should have in your contract that you're allowed to pick the quarterback and to have something to say about the personnel that's drafted and traded for within your organization.
Yeah, and I would hope that to be the case, and everybody is just, people just want the opportunity. I mean, Caldwell's still out there. Big C had 9 wins with the Detroit Lions that got fired. They haven't had 9 wins since he left. If you combine 2 seasons, and you can Google that. Big C Sports wants to be the new sexy, the new clever. We want to be bold. We want to be engaging, but we really want to be honest. If you're doing something and it feels good and you want some more, just Google it, and I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, I'm thankful that teams are starting to put the player's safety first instead of just the game per se.
Yeah.
And they're sending teams home and canceling games.
Yeah.
Also want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, our doctors, our first responders, because you keep everybody in America safe and healthy every day.
They do it every day, just like Cadillac, the new Escalade. Never stop arriving. Go out and vote. Stand in line for movie tickets. You can stand in line for concerts. Stand in line to vote. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on so many apps, and we really appreciate the growth of Big C Sports. As we always tell you, on every Big C Sports show, there's never, ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. If you know any man, woman, or child going through that garbage, please just pick up the phone and ask for help, because no man, woman, or child should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you, on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.